we've already covered it slightly in terms of Elon Musk and his um, purchasing of Twitter, taking over of Twitter, and why he's done so supposedly in the name of bringing back free speech. Um, However, I know you have a lot of expertise in this area because your master's is in media and communications, right?
Yeah,
So I'm presuming that that covered a lot in regards to free speech and what you can and can't say in regards to the media.
of course, yeah, and a lot to do with like media regulation and social media platforms.
So do you want to just give us your understanding or what is the actual definition of free speech in regards to media law?
I think where there's some confusion, particularly in Western discourse, is the idea that freedom of speech means freedom from consequence, which as a legal precedent does not exist. We have laws about libel, defamation, incitement to violence, incitement to racial hatred, etc., etc. So there's never been, well, perhaps there has somewhere in the distant past, but in the contemporary world, there hasn't been a situation where you can say anything you want all the time without reproach. You'll see newspapers having to print corrections, people, being sued for libel, etc., etc. So I think what we're seeing now is that post the Me Too movement of, I think it was 2016, a lot more people feel more comfortable speaking out against things they don't like, which is of course good. The natural pushback to that from more conservative voices will be playing the victim card and acting as if they're somehow being victimized or silenced for not being able to say absurd things. And now we've got a situation where there's a sort of confusion of free speech, what that means in a legal context, and then what it means in public discourse.
Do you think that if you don't have a legal understanding of the term of free speech, that you should be able to still navigate between what's right and wrong? Or do you feel like we should maybe give people a bit of leeway on it? Because how are they meant to know what, when you hear free speech, you automatically think, oh, well, I can say anything.
That's a really good question. I think in terms of if we're just an average Twitter user or social media user, we like to believe that laws are governed by morality. Most of the time they're not, but in the case of this, it almost doesn't matter what the law is. If just as adults we could not say defamatory or hateful things about other people, whether we fear reproach from the law or not, I just think that would be a good way to live.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's sort of where I kind of lie with it. I'm sort of like, if you are, in my opinion, a person with strong morals, you automatically would veer on the true definition of free speech anyway, because why would you be constantly saying hateful things or needing to be saying all these? Because it's always negative, isn't it? All this stuff is stuff that's related, it's rooted in negativity and hate. So why would you need to say that or constantly put it out on social media? Which sort of brings us to Elon Musk, who I know you said before that you don't necessarily want to give him too much attention because he's someone who thrives off it. However, obviously, he's bought Twitter for $44 billion. He wants to supposedly bring back free speech. He's previously voiced his opposition to the banning of Donald Trump, which, although he was tweeting like a lot before then, that was questionable. He was only banned for life after he incited the US Capitol riots in 2021. So with Elon Musk taking over Twitter, where do you sort of see this going? Is it something to worry about?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the only thing that would make me give that guy any airtime. I think if we look at the Capitol Hill riots, if we look at the Charlottesville riots, if you look at the impact that things like Reddit and 4chan have had in terms of facilitating incels and the terrorist attacks they've committed, if you look at the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand, it's very clear. There's a clear causality between acts of terrorism and people being able to say whatever they like without reproach. There's an interview with Elon Musk on, I think it's TED Talk sort of interview setup, where he quotes Twitter being the global equivalent of the town square where people should be able to say what they want. Within that analogy, that in of itself provides the perfect explanation of why you shouldn't be able to say whatever you want all the time on Twitter. Because if someone went into an actual town square and, I don't know, called for the extermination of an ethnic group, that would be incitement to racial hatred, which is illegal. So by his own analogy, the idea of people being able to say anything they want on Twitter without reproach doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the whole town square analogy, it's not like the town square is this magical land where you can just go in and just have face no repercussions for your actions. That town square is still falls within the law of the land, and the law of the land has all these rules that relate to what you can say and what you can't say.
There's always these silly analogies like the town square or the marketplace of ideas, that it's not a real place. We live in the real world where there's real laws that everyone has to adhere to.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Where do you see Twitter going then under Elon Musk? Do you see it becoming this sort of what he wants it to be, town square idea, or do you reckon it'll still be restricted? Because I know that the social media regulators have already come out and said to Elon Musk, like, you just so you know, like, you are going to have to follow these rules. Like, you can't just do whatever you want in regards to Twitter. So that would maybe make me think that at least he is going to have to follow some kind of structure and some kind of rules in regards to what people can and can't say. But do you reckon he'll manage to get away around it? Or
I mean, just to go back to how you phrased the question, you said, will Twitter become the town square, or whatever he said that Elon Musk wants it to be? We don't want to give too much, gravity to his assertion that he wants Twitter to be like a free speech marketplace. He doesn't care about free speech. It's just a lie. If you look at Tesla, there's countless examples of them, quashing people who want to start unions. Part of his bid to buy Twitter is with money from a Saudi prince. The Saudi government do not have a great free speech record or indeed human rights record. So the idea that Elon Musk in any way cares about the average person being able to express their opinions is just ludicrous. So moving past that, in my opinion, the reason for him buying Twitter and wanting it to be a place that's, completely deregulated is just capitalism, basically. He's a businessman. Twitter is used by loads and billions of people, I imagine. But they're also failing from a profit, standpoint. They're, seeing massive deficits. There's a great journal by the London School of Economics on media audiences. I forget who writes it, but they talk about the fact that the best way to sort of orchestrate virality online is by using high emotive content. So whether it's high emotive in the positive sense, like someone beating cancer or a wedding, or negative in terms of someone saying something super racist that everyone jumps in and makes comments about, either way, having content that makes people super emotional in some way gets attention. So if you buy Twitter and put in, I don't know, a paid subscription element to it, more advertisers, whatever it may be, then the more people using the platform, the more profitable it's going to be. So having people like Donald Trump, YE, Katie Hopkins, who will say preposterous things that then everyone has an opinion on, will make more people use Twitter. That means advertisers would then have to pay Twitter more because Twitter can prove that more people use their platform. So yeah, in terms of whether or not he'll be able to turn it into what he wants, i.e. a place for advertisers to make him richer, time will tell. But I think we should acknowledge that that's what this is about.
it makes a lot of sense actually, because I remember, like you've already mentioned as well, about how Twitter isn't doing that well financially, in regards to say Facebook and Instagram, which you would, I remember thinking when I saw that Elon Musk was going for Twitter, I was like, oh well, why is he not going for the top tier social media? But I suppose that makes more sense when you think about stuff. Facebook and Instagram, it always sort of has like the ability to, it's a lot more private per se, whereas Twitter, like, it already has this sort of sense of like just everyone just yelling whatever comes to their mind first, sort of thing.
Of course, but it's like, I'm by no means a stock expert or a crypto bro or anything. But one thing I have learned from the Wolf of Wall Street and dickheads who DM me all the time about crypto is that when you buy something when it's underperforming, you stand to make more profit. So if Twitter is at a deficit and you buy it then and then make it profitable, that would be, I imagine, cheaper than trying to buy Instagram. So on Instagram, you've got Instagram shopping, you've got paid advertising, reels now. It's very clear where the money can come from. With Twitter, not so much, but they have the audience. So if you can buy something that has that audience, and then you're the one who makes it profitable, you stand to make more money.
Probably going to round things off there. Was there any final comments that you maybe wanted to pass on this whole situation?
Yeah, actually, it seems like a bit of a tangent, but I'm sure most people are aware of the Rwandan genocide, I think in 1992. So there was a man called Theophile Kabuga who retrospectively was on the run for like at least a decade, maybe 2 decades. But yeah, I think he was only apprehended in 2020. So what he did is he went on the radio advocating for, you know, the rounding up of people, and that was seen as one of the key reasons why the Rwandan genocide happened. He himself never picked up a gun. It wasn't proven necessarily that he supplied arms straight to the hands of people, but under international law, a bounty was basically put on him because there was an understanding that using media to incite violence has real world bloody consequences. And we all know how horrible the Rwandan genocide was. Now, in no way am I equating Elon Musk to the perpetrators of the Rwandan genocide. To be clear, I'm not saying it's the same thing. What I am saying is that we've for a long time had an understanding of how the incitement of different horrible ideologies can have real world consequences. And that's something we need to be very careful and remember before we make stupid analogies about marketplace of ideas or town squares, etc., etc.